Have you ever heard of someone asking Jesus to exchange places with him on the cross? A fascinating Norwegian legend tells of Håkon, a humble hermit who made such an extraordinary request out of great devotion. But what would drive a person to make such a bold petition? And what could they possibly learn from standing in Jesus' place? Håkon's request was not driven by pride or rebellion, but by a pure heart seeking to serve. He believed that enduring Christ's suffering was the ultimate act of love and faith. But a more significant truth of utter submission, heavenly insight, and humility was exposed to him on his journey. If you enjoy content that helps you grow spiritually, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our community for more inspiration. Let's get started. As the legend unfolds, Håkon was a caretaker of a small chapel, known for its ancient cross that inspired reverence and devotion. Pilgrims visited to pray, leaving offerings and asking for miracles. Day after day, he watched their devotion, wondering how he could better serve the Lord. This burning question led him to an audacious prayer. One day, kneeling before the cross, he poured out his heart. "Lord, let me suffer in your place. Let me take your burden." To his amazement, the figure of Christ responded, agreeing on one condition. Håkon must remain silent, no matter what he witnessed. Eager and resolute, he promised his silence, and the miraculous exchange took place. Now, bearing the weight of the cross, Håkon observed the world from a new perspective. At first, he stood silently as people came to pray, their faces filled with hope and despair. Then came a test. A wealthy man, lost in thought, forgot his purse at the altar. Hours later, a poor man entered, found the purse, and took it. Håkon saw it all, but remained silent. Later, a young traveller stopped to pray before embarking on a dangerous journey. Just then, the wealthy man returned, accusing the traveller of stealing the purse. The accusation grew heated, and he felt his resolve falter. Despite his promise, he cried out, defending the innocent youth and rebuking the wealthy man. The chapel fell silent as the visitors fled, stunned. Håkon's breaking of the vow set the stage for Jesus' return and the profound lessons about divine providence that would follow. From his elevated position on the cross, he bore witness to the ceaseless flow of human struggles entering the chapel. Each visitor carried their own silent pleas, some seeking healing, others forgiveness, and many a miracle. The air was thick with prayers that hung like whispers before God. Håkon, now embodying Christ, felt an overwhelming tension between his role as a silent observer and his natural desire to act. In those moments when life feels overwhelming and the silence of the divine seems impenetrable, it's natural to question, to seek, to yearn for understanding. The struggles witnessed by Håkon resonate deeply with all of us. Times of uncertainty, when we carry silent prayers and hope for miracles. This is exactly what The Secret of Jesus' Apparitions offers, a path to clarity and peace through his revelations. This ebook goes into his prophecies and offers insight into what lies ahead. It's available for free in the pinned comment. Grab it now before the edition's gone. One particular day brought a sequence of events that tested his vow. A wealthy merchant arrived, his presence commanding. He placed a heavy purse near the altar, its contents a testament to his riches. With a quick bow of the head and a hurried exit, the merchant disappeared, unaware he had left behind what could change the life of another. He noted the act, but remained still, his silence a sharp contrast to the merchant's apparent carelessness. As hours passed, the door creaked open again. A man entered, his worn clothes and hollow cheeks betraying the weight of poverty. His eyes scanned the altar, lingering on the purse. Hunger and desperation clouded his judgment, and with trembling hands he seized the purse. He hesitated for a moment, then fled as if pursued by invisible condemnation. Watching this unfold, Hawkins' heart ached, but he did not move. Later that afternoon, a young traveller stepped into the chapel. His youthful face was radiant with determination, and his quiet prayer revealed his hope for a safe journey. Håkon admired the boy's resolve, sensing that his aspirations were noble and his heart pure. The boy's words, though inaudible, seemed to echo the psalm. "The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore." Psalm 121:8. Just as the boy stood to leave, the wealthy merchant burst back into the chapel, his face reddened with anger. He scanned the room, spotted the boy, and accused him of theft. The boy recoiled, his voice shaking as he denied the claims. Tension crackled in the air as the merchant's booming voice filled the sacred space, while the boy stammered, his innocence clear to anyone who cared to listen. Håkon's resolve to remain silent wavered under the weight of the injustice unfolding before him. The young man's trembling figure became an unbearable sight, yet Håkon clung to his promise, a silent witness to the unfolding chaos. The merchant's anger boiled over, his accusations intensifying as he loomed over the young traveller. The boy, frightened and confused, pleaded his innocence, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The chapel, once a place of solace, became a theatre of escalating conflict. Håkon, hanging on the cross, wrestled with his silence, the weight of his promise pressing down as heavily as the nails in his hands. The merchant began to draw closer, his voice sharp and cutting. "Do not lie to me, boy. Return what you've stolen, or face the consequences." The young traveller, now trembling, raised his hands defensively. "I swear by all that is holy, I have taken nothing." His words, though sincere, did little to quell the merchant's fury. Håkon watched as the scene unfolded, every fibre of his being urging him to intervene. He recalled Jesus' condition, that he must remain silent no matter what he witnessed, yet the growing injustice stirred a storm within him. Could it truly be God's will for an innocent boy to suffer under false accusations? Even in the quietest moments, guidance is within reach. Don't miss the opportunity to download your free ebook. There are few copies remaining. The merchant, consumed by rage, reached out to seize the boy by the collar. At that moment, Håkon could bear it no longer. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice ringing through the sacred space. The merchant froze, his hand suspended in the air as his eyes darted toward the cross. The boy turned as well, his face a mixture of fear and astonishment. "You accuse this boy unjustly," Håkon continued, his voice trembling but firm. "He has not taken your purse." The merchant's face shifted from anger to disbelief as he realized the source of the voice. For a moment, the room fell silent, the tension palpable as all eyes fixed on the figure of Christ, speaking from the cross. The merchant stumbled backward, his fury giving way to confusion. Without another word, he turned and fled from the chapel, the weight of the moment too much to bear. The young traveller stood rooted to the spot, his gaze lingering on the cross. A mix of relief and awe washed over him before he, too, hurried away, eager to escape the inexplicable and continue his journey. Håkon remained suspended, his outburst echoing in the now empty chapel. He realized the magnitude of his decision. He had broken his sacred vow, shattering the trust placed in him by Christ himself. The stillness that followed his outburst lingered in the chapel, almost suffocating. His voice, once filled with determination, now felt like a heavy weight pressing on his spirit. He had defended the innocent and corrected the accuser, but in doing so, he had broken his solemn promise to remain silent. As the echoes of his words faded into silence, a familiar presence filled the room. The air seemed to shift, and Håkon felt an undeniable sense of being watched. From the shadows, Christ emerged, his countenance calm but piercing. His steps were unhurried, yet each one carried the weight of infinite wisdom. Håkon's heart sank as the Lord approached, his gaze steady and filled with a mixture of sorrow and understanding. "You could not remain silent," Christ said, his voice soft yet unwavering. Håkon opened his mouth to explain, but his words faltered under the intensity of the Lord's gaze. "Lord, I only wanted to stop an injustice," he managed to say, his voice trembling. Jesus gestured gently toward the cross, his expression unchanging. "What you saw as an injustice," he began, "was a design far beyond your understanding." As Håkon's perplexion grew, the Lord went on, his voice now imbued with a nearly paternal calm. "The merchant's purse," Christ explained, "was filled with the price of a young woman's purity, a payment he intended to use for sin. By losing it, he was saved from committing a grave act, though he does not yet understand this mercy." Håkon's eyes widened as the weight of these words settled in. "And the poor man who took the purse?" Håkon asked hesitantly. Christ's gaze softened. "He returned to his starving family, who will now eat and survive this harsh winter. His need was far greater than the merchant's wealth." A chill ran through Håkon as the Lord continued. As for the boy, his journey would have ended in disaster. The confrontation you witnessed delayed him long enough to avoid a storm that would have claimed his life. As the mysteries unfold, remember, answers are closer than they seem. Secure your free copy of the e-book today while it's still available. Håkon stood motionless, his heart heavy with both shame and awe. "I did not see these things," he murmured, his voice breaking. Christ nodded. "That is why I am silent, Håkon. I see what you cannot. Trust in my design." The chapel grew quiet once more, the weight of divine providence pressing upon Håkon's soul. He stood in the dim light of the chapel, his body trembling as Christ's words resonated in his mind. The weight of what he had misunderstood pressed on him. He had thought his act was righteous, but now he saw how limited his perception had been. The silence of the Lord was not inaction. It was a profound trust in the divine plan unfolding beyond human sight. As Christ stepped back toward the cross, he glanced at Håkon, his expression unchanged. "Do you understand now why I do not speak, even when it seems unjust?" Håkon nodded weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Lord. You see what I cannot. Your silence carries meaning I could not grasp." The Lord placed his hand on the wood of the cross, his voice calm as he continued. "You believed intervention was needed, yet you did not know the consequences. This silence is not indifference, it is love beyond what you can comprehend." Håkon's thoughts raced as he tried to absorb these words, but Christ's gaze seemed to reach into his soul, quieting his mind. "To the world," Christ said, "silence may appear as abandonment, but my silence protected the innocent and corrected the guilty. Even when you cannot see it, I am always working." His words brought to mind the many times Håkon had questioned why prayers seemed unanswered, why suffering lingered. Now he began to see the profound depth of divine wisdom. The Lord's hand rested briefly on the cross before he turned his gaze back to Håkon. "You spoke because your heart sought justice, yet justice was already being served in ways you could not imagine. The merchant will find repentance, the poor man will find provision, and the boy will find safety. Håkon lowered his head, shame mingling with awe. I have failed you, Lord. I thought I could bear your place, but I did not trust enough. Christ lifted his hand, and a gentleness radiated from him. You have not failed, my servant. You have learned what it means to trust beyond sight, to have faith even when silence seems unbearable. The chapel was still, the lessons Håkon had learned settling into his heart. Christ moved to take his place on the cross once more, his silent watch over humanity an act of enduring love. As Christ resumed his place on the cross, Håkon stepped aside, his body heavy with exhaustion and humility. The wood bore him again, yet his presence remained radiantly alive. Håkon watched in silence, a student now humbled by the lesson he had received. The chapel's quiet seemed to echo the immensity of what had transpired. Christ's voice broke the stillness, soft yet firm. You sought to take my place out of love, yet you now see that my sacrifice requires more than suffering. It demands an eternal understanding of my creation. Each life, each choice, is woven into a design you cannot yet comprehend. The silence holds powerful lessons, and now you can uncover them too. Your free ebook awaits, but only for a short time. Don't wait to claim yours. Håkon recalled the faces of those who had passed through the chapel, the merchant, the poor man, the young traveller. He realized their paths were guided not by coincidence, but by purpose. Lord, he said hesitantly, how do you endure it all? The pain, the misunderstandings, the silence. Christ fixed his strong, steady gaze on him. I endure because my love for you and for all is boundless. There is a greater truth behind every act of silence, one that unfolds in time. Just as my death on this cross brought life to the world, so does every moment of stillness serve my purpose. Håkon's mind returned to the scriptures, to the stories of God's faithfulness amidst human doubt. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, Christ said, quoting the prophet Isaiah. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Isaiah 55, 8-9. The words reverberated within Håkon, anchoring him in the truth of divine providence. If this message makes you think and you feel it connects with you so far, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Also, if you really want to support our work and help us keep creating valuable content, consider giving us a super thanks. Join this amazing community and don't miss any news. A soft light began to filter through the chapel windows, illuminating the cross. Håkon felt his own doubts and questions dissolve in the glow. He knelt at the foot of the cross, no longer seeking to replace Christ, but to serve him in the simplicity of faith. The chapel door creaked open, and a new visitor stepped inside. Håkon did not look up, content to remain in the presence of the one who bore the weight of all humanity. The Lord's silence spoke volumes, and for the first time, Håkon truly listened.